Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Many people in the Middle East went into the streets. This happened from June 19 to June 21, 2025. People were very angry and afraid. Israel's army started to attack places in Iran and also in Gaza. This was a big change and made things much worse for many. In cities like Tehran, Baghdad, and Beirut, large groups of people gathered. They shouted loudly. They showed flags. They wanted their leaders to do something. People carried pictures of important leaders and heroes. They burned flags from Israel. Sometimes they burned flags from America too. They shouted strong words. They were sad and angry. They said things like, "Death to Israel," and "No to America." They felt these attacks were wrong and against the law. People showed their feelings in different ways. They waved flags high. They put fire to old tires to stop cars on the roads. They prayed together in big groups, and after praying, they stayed to protest. Even children wrote words on paper signs. The number of people protesting was very big. Many people did not think so many would protest. News from different countries said that thousands of people came out in each city. In Baghdad, in areas where many Shiite people live, many people protested after prayers on Friday. They shouted against Israel and America. In Basra, a city in Iraq, about 2,000 people walked together after prayers. In Tehran and other cities in Iran, the government helped arrange some protests. But also, many people just came out because they were angry. One photo showed a lot of people holding flags from Iran. They were shouting and making noise with drums. In Lebanon, in areas where Hezbollah is strong, there were also big marches. In the places near Beirut and in the city of Saida, hundreds of people came out. They showed flags from Iran. They shouted words of support. Even in countries far away, small groups of people gathered. A religious leader in Lebanon said, "When Iran is in danger, all Muslim countries are in danger." This was a feeling many people shared. These protests were not small. They were big and often planned well. Important leaders often asked people to come out. In Iraq, a religious leader named Muqtada al-Sadr asked his many followers to protest. His supporters filled the streets in Baghdad. People of all ages stood together. They shouted, "No to Israel," "No to America," and waved flags from Iraq. One person said, "It is not a fair war." He said Israel should not attack Iran. He felt that Israel and America wanted to control the Middle East. Many signs people held said the same thing. 2. Why people protested. The main reason why large numbers of people went out into the streets to protest was because Israel started new military attacks. These attacks were not just happening in Gaza anymore, but also targeted places inside Iran. For many people in the Middle East, this sudden expansion of the conflict felt like a very big and dangerous step. When people heard about these strikes, they felt a lot of intense fear about what might happen next. They were also filled with deep anger. They strongly believed that these attacks were unfair and wrong. A very important feeling among the protesters was the strong desire to show their support and solidarity. They wanted to stand together with the people in Iran and with the people in Gaza, who were already facing a difficult situation. Many people felt a close connection and wanted to show that they were not alone. Important leaders in the region, both religious figures and political figures, played a big role in encouraging people to protest. They spoke to the public and asked them to come out and demonstrate against the attacks. For example, in Iraq, a very well-known religious and political leader named Muqtada al-Sadr called on all his many followers to go into the streets and protest strongly against what Israel was doing. Following his call, large numbers of people gathered in different places, like in the city of Baghdad, often after their Friday prayers. They chanted loudly, expressing their opposition to Israel and the United States. In another Iraqi city, Basra, people also organized protests. They clearly showed their anger by burning an Israeli flag. They also shouted slogans against Israel and against the President of the United States, Donald Trump, because many people in the region see the U.S. as strongly supporting Israel. In Lebanon, a strong political and military group known as Hezbollah also organized many large rallies. Their supporters came out to speak against what they described as attacks by the Zionist American aggression. At these protest gatherings, people often held up pictures of their own leaders and also pictures of important figures from Iran, showing their strong support and unity. Burning flags, especially Israeli and American flags, became a very common and powerful action. It was a way to show very deep anger and strong disagreement with the actions taking place. People chanted many different slogans to express their feelings. Phrases like "Death to Israel" and "Death to America" were heard again and again. These strong feelings against Israel and the United States were not something new. Many people in this region have felt this way for a long time. This is because of history, past conflicts, and the way things have developed in the area, including the influence of other countries. The recent attacks on Iran made these long-held feelings much, much stronger. It motivated many people to leave their homes and protest openly in the streets. They felt it was very important to stand together and make their voices heard very loudly against the conflict and against what they saw as unfair and harmful actions. Showing support for Iran and Gaza was seen as a duty by many. 3. Protests in big cities. Across the Middle East, people went to the streets in big numbers. Many large protests happened in important cities in several countries. In Iraq, the city of Baghdad saw many people join demonstrations. Supporters of the religious leader Muqtada al-Sadr led these very large protests. They gathered in areas like Sadr City, which is a big part of Baghdad. People came out strongly on the evening of June 20th after Friday prayers. Men, women, old and young stood together in the streets. They waved the flags of Iraq. They shouted words loudly like "No to Israel" and "No to America." An Iraqi man, Abu Hussein, who drives a taxi, was in the crowd. He said Israel should not attack Iran. He felt Israel and the Americans wanted to control the Middle East. Many people in the crowd held signs that agreed with this idea. Another city in Iraq, Basra, in the south, also had large protests. About 2,000 people marched in a group after Friday prayers on June 21st. They gathered in the city's main square. Here, people took an Israeli flag and burned it. This was a strong sign of their deep anger. They also shouted, "Down with Israel! Down with Trump!" Donald Trump is the real president of the United States. A cleric named Qusay Asadi spoke to the large crowd in Basra. He said that Israel using Iraq's sky to attack was a clear wrong action against Iraq. In both Baghdad and Basra, people shouted angry words many times against Israel and America, like "Death to Israel! Death to America!" Even though the feeling was strong and serious, some parts of the protest felt a bit like a festival, with people giving out bottles of water and snacks. In Lebanon, protests happened in the city of Beirut and the port city of Saida. The group Hezbollah organized these important rallies. People carried flags of Hezbollah and Iran. They also showed pictures of important Iranian leaders like Ayatollah Khamenei, who is Iran's supreme leader. They held pictures of Hezbollah's founder, too. People shouted words of support and anger. In the suburbs of Beirut, they said they were against the Zionist American aggression against Iran. Young women in the crowd shouted, "Death to America." Men shouted words meaning, "You, Israel, will drown." Hezbollah officials spoke to the crowds at these rallies. MP Ali Ammar told reporters that the people were showing their support for Khamenei. Later, a high-ranking Hezbollah official, Sheikh Sadek Nabulsi, gave a very strong speech. He warned that if Israel dared to attack Iran's leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, it would cause a very big reaction everywhere. He promised that nothing belonging to the United States in the region would be safe from attack. The crowds cheered and clapped loudly when he said this. These protests in different cities showed the strong anger felt by many people in the region after the attacks. They were large, organized events that happened in different countries. 4. Iran's own story. In Iran, the situation was complex. The government organized large rallies in cities like Tehran. These events aimed to show the country's unity against the attacks from Israel. People gathered, holding national flags and pictures of important leaders like Ayatollah Khamenei and the General Qasem Soleimani. Supporters, including members of the besieged militia, shouted strong slogans like "Death to America," "Death to Israel," and burned flags. State television showed these large crowds to present a picture of strong national support and anger at the enemy. However, outside these official events, many Iranians had mixed feelings. They were certainly very angry about Israel's brutal airstrikes. These attacks caused damage and hurt people, killing officials and a civilian teenager. But many people were also unhappy with their own government. Some felt the government's actions had led to this dangerous situation and criticized its policies. The fear of the war growing was also strong among the people. They worried about more bombs falling and destroying their cities. This fear was very real for families. A well-known person, Nobel winner Narges Mohammadi, sent a public message asking for her city not to be bombed, showing this deep worry shared by many. Some Iranians chose not to go to the government-organized rallies. These included students and activists who criticized the government. They said they would protest later, after the fighting stopped, because they believed the government was responsible for the war and the current danger. An older person in Tehran described how difficult this attack felt, saying it was worse than previous problems. Daily life became harder for many. There were reports of air raid sirens going off, sometimes causing blackouts. People worried about getting basic things like fuel and water. Schools ended early, and some workplaces closed because of the danger. Parents taught their children what to do during a siren, like hiding under desks, showing the fear they felt for their family's safety. So, in Iran, there was a clear difference between the public show of anger and unity and the private feelings of the people. There were organized rallies against Israel and the U.S., but among ordinary Iranians, there was also anger at their own government and a deep fear of what might happen next. They felt caught between their anger at being attacked and their worries about the future of their country. It was a time of mixed emotions and uncertainty. 5. What people shouted and did. People in the streets showed anger. They burned flags from Israel and sometimes the United States. They carried pictures of leaders and people who died. Many waved their flags. Some set fires or blocked roads. Large groups prayed, then joined protests. Children wrote on signs. People shouted loudly. The words they shouted were strong. Common shouts were "Death to Israel" and "No to America." They shouted, "Down with Israel, down with Trump. He is the U.S. president." They said Israel would drown. People shouted, "God is great," and "Death to America, death to Israel." They shouted leader names or guidance. When someone shouted about Palestine, crowds agreed loudly and cheered. They said, "We must stand with our brothers in Iran and Palestine." Some young people said, "Our problem is Israel, not Iran." These chants were heard widely. What people did spread fast online. People shared videos on sites like X and Telegram. Videos of crowds shouting in Arabic and Persian went online. Hashtags, words with numbers, helped find news quickly. Some were "Not My America" and "Stop Iran Genocide." In Iran, hashtags like "Don't Destroy Our City" showed war fears. Online talks showed strong feelings and connected people far away. People who were there saw many things. A writer in Tehran saw thousands shouting about their leader and against Israel. An old man felt it was the worst attack. In Baghdad, a mother brought children to protest to support Iran and Palestine. Her daughter copied shouts, looked afraid, but waved a poster. A taxi driver said the war was unfair and Israel America wanted control. In Basra, a teacher was angry about bombs. He said people would help Iran with money, guns, or protests. A local leader said it was wrong Israel used Iraqi sky for attacks without asking. He said they would not be silent. The feeling was full of energy and anger, sometimes like a party, but also tense. This shows what people shouted and did when danger grew. Their actions and words were a clear message to the world. 6. World news and reactions. News from the Middle East spread quickly around the world. Big news channels like Al Jazeera, BBC, and CNN showed many pictures and videos of the protests. News reports from places like Reuters and AFP put these events on their front pages. People in other countries, even far away in places like Europe and Latin America, also had protests to show their feelings. Governments in the Middle East spoke about the situation. Iran said they would not stop fighting back. Supreme Leader Khamenei gave speeches that sounded strong against Israel. In Iraq, Prime Minister al-Sudani was more careful. He said Iraq was with its neighbors, but should stay safe and not join a bigger war. In Lebanon, President Aoun thanked Hezbollah, but also asked people to stay calm. Turkey's President Tayyip Erdogan said Israel's attacks were wrong. He said Turkey would get ready to defend itself. Other Arab countries like Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt also said they did not agree with Israel's actions. They asked everyone to stop fighting. But these countries did not let many people protest on the streets. The United Nations, called the UN, held a meeting. Iran's representative asked the UN to do something. Israel's representative said Israel would keep fighting until Iran stopped its nuclear work. The UN leaders asked for peace and calm. The UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, said he was very worried. Countries from the Arab League also met and asked for fighting to stop soon. Big countries far away also said things. In the United States, President Donald Trump said he was sad about the people who died. He sent a message online saying it was a shame. He warned that if Iran got nuclear weapons, the whole world would have problems. The U.S. also sent more ships and planes to the area to protect its interests. Russia and China Two other big countries together asked for peace and for the fighting to stop quickly. European countries, like the UK and Germany, sent their ministers to talk. They said Iran must not have nuclear weapons. They also said that all sides must be careful and not start a war that nobody can control. People who study the region said that a bigger war would hurt the peace there badly. They saw that people were already worried and afraid in many places. 7. Deeper reasons for anger. The big protests showed anger, but this anger was not just because of the recent attacks. There were deeper reasons for people to be upset. One reason was the problems that have been in the Middle East for a long time. These include the conflict happening in Gaza. People in the region have watched this for many months. They felt sad and angry about the suffering there. So when new attacks happened, their anger became very strong. Another deep reason was the feeling about America's actions and power in the region. Some people feel that America has too much influence. They remember past events like the war in 2003 and feel upset about it. This long-standing feeling against America made the anger about the recent events even bigger. Also, many people felt connected because of their religion. In countries like Iraq, Lebanon, and Iran, many people are Shiite Muslims. They felt a strong link to each other. When one part of this group seemed in danger, others wanted to help. This feeling of religious family or sectarian solidarity was a strong reason for people to protest and show support. Political leaders also played a part. Some leaders used the protests to help themselves. They saw a chance to get more support from people or to look strong against outside forces. They asked their followers to come to the streets, and this helped make the protests very large. In Iran, the reasons for anger were also complex. People were angry that Israel attacked their country. But some people in Iran also had problems with their own government. They worried that the government's actions had caused this war. Some felt fear about the fighting and did not want their cities to be hurt. They wanted peace, but also felt angry about the attacks on their home. So the anger in Iran was a mix of feelings about outside enemies and about their own country's situation. Most of the protests were peaceful. People walked and shouted their feelings. They showed their anger with words and signs. However, there were a few small problems. In some places, there were small fights, or police used gas to stop people. But for the most part, the demonstrations were people showing their deep anger and worry in a peaceful way. 8. What happens next? The situation in the Middle East remains very tense and uncertain after the big protests we saw. People everywhere feel strong emotions. There is deep anger about the recent military attacks, especially Israel's actions reaching into Iran, which many see as a major escalation. But there is also much fear. Many people feel very vulnerable, like they are not safe in their homes or cities. A sense of dread for the future is present. Daily life is not easy for many families because of this fear. People worry about more fighting starting or spreading every day. Sometimes air raid sirens sound in cities, which makes people very scared. In some places, like Tehran, work hours were shorter because of the danger from potential strikes. Some factories closed down. People worried about getting basic things they need, like food, fuel, and water, as supplies could run low in a crisis. The threat of conflict disrupts normal life. Governments in the region are speaking, but their messages are often mixed. Some leaders try hard to calm the people and find ways to stop things from getting worse. Others speak very strongly against the other side, using tough words and even threats. For example, Iraq's prime minister said his country stands with its neighbors who are attacked, but must also protect itself from being pulled into a bigger regional conflict. This shows the difficult position many governments are in. Experts, people who study the region and its politics for a living, are very worried about what comes next. They say the situation could get much, much worse very quickly. They fear the conflict could easily spread from Israel and Iran to more countries in the region, like Lebanon, Syria, or Iraq. They see the high tension everywhere and warn about the real possibility of a larger war breaking out that could affect many lives. The recent protests showed something important and maybe new. People from different places, like Iraq, Lebanon, and Iran, felt a sense of unity for a few days. They came together in anger against the military attacks, especially the actions by Israel and the United States, who President Donald Trump supports. The protests showed how deeply frustrated people are with the violence that keeps happening year after year in their region. They also showed frustration with their own governments, which sometimes seem unable to stop the conflict or protect them from it. This moment of unity, though maybe short-lived, was called unprecedented by some observers. It brought together different groups who usually do not agree on everything politically, uniting them under one banner of anger at these external attacks. Many ordinary people, even those who protested, just want peace. Like a teacher in southern Lebanon said, her country does not want war. They want things to be calm and safe for their children and families. They do not want to fight battles that they feel belong to others. This strong desire for peace is felt by many across the region, even while the protests showed their strong anger. But the future is not clear at all. Will the high tension lead to more fighting and a bigger, terrible war that harms many innocent people? Or will leaders find a way to stop the violence and find a way to talk and de-escalate? The path ahead is very uncertain. Many people hope very much that peace will return soon, and that the region can find a way out of this difficult and dangerous time. The protests were a loud message from the people, showing their feelings, but the result of that message is still unknown. Thinking about these serious events and the feelings of the people living there, what do you think will happen next in the Middle East?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.